I came back from my storage unit to find my landlord nailing my front door shut with a rusty hammer and 4-inch nails. It was 11:08 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I still had 5 days left on my lease. "What the hell are you doing, Henderson?" I shouted, my voice echoing in the narrow hallway. He didn't even look back. Bang, bang, bang. "I told you to be out by 10, he grumbled, his breath smelling like stale coffee and cigarettes. "You weren't out, so now the unit is sealed. Anything left inside is mine." "My cat is in there." I lunged for the door, but he pushed me back with a sweaty hand. "Not my problem," he said. He had this twisted smile on his face, like he was finally winning a war he'd started 3 years ago. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just dealing with a bad landlord. I was dealing with a monster. But what Henderson didn't know was that I'd already called the one person who could ruin his entire life. And that's when I made my first mistake. I didn't walk away. I stayed to fight. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button right now. Stories about entitled landlords like this one, they get absolutely insane. Trust me, you aren't going to believe how I took this guy's entire empire down. Let's get back into it. 3 years ago, I thought I'd found a steal. The apartment was a bit vintage, which is just a fancy way of saying the floorboards creaked and the windows leaked, but it was cheap. "It's a quiet building, Mark," Henderson told me the day I signed the lease. He patted the brick wall like it was made of solid gold. "I take care of my tenants. We're like a big family here." He wore a suit that was 2 sizes too big and a gold watch that looked like it came from a cereal box. I should have known then. People who try that hard to look rich usually are the greediest. For the first year, I was the perfect tenant. I paid my rent on the first of the month, every single time. I didn't complain when the hallway light went out for 3 weeks. I didn't complain when the lid-free paint started peeling off the ceiling like sunburned skin. I just wanted a quiet place to live. I worked 40 hours a week as a junior accountant, and all I wanted was to come home and relax. But Henderson? He didn't want a tenant. He wanted a victim. The real trouble started in the common area. We had a shared laundry room in the basement. I'd bought my own dryer because the one provided by the building looked like it had survived the 1970s. One Tuesday, I went down to dry my work shirts. The dryer was gone. Just a pair of cut wires and a dust outline on the floor. I called Henderson immediately. "Hey, my dryer's missing from the basement." "Oh, that?" He sounded bored. "I had to remove it. Fire hazard." "A fire hazard? I bought it brand new 6 months ago. Where is it?" "I disposed of it for you. You should be thanking me for keeping the building safe, Mark. Don't be ungrateful." "You stole my $300 dryer." My hands were shaking. I could taste the bitterness in the back of my throat. "I didn't steal anything. I managed my property," he snapped. "Read your lease. I have the right to remove unauthorized items from common areas. Next time, follow the rules." He hung up. That was the first time I felt that pit in my stomach. The realization that my home wasn't actually mine. A few months later, the kitchen sink backed up. It wasn't just a clog. It was a geyser of gray, oily water. I called a plumber, and he looked at the pipes for 10 minutes before laughing. "Kid, this plumbing is illegal," the plumber said, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. "It's not vented right. This was a DIY job by someone who didn't know what they were doing." The bill was $400. I sent it to Henderson, thinking it was a slam dunk. "I'm not paying this," Henderson said when he cornered me in the hallway the next day. He stood too close, his cheap cologne making my eyes water. "The plumber said the pipes were illegal, Henderson. That's normal wear and tear. The plumber is a liar, he hissed. You probably shoved grease down there. You pay the bill, or you're out. And since you've been so difficult, rent is going up next month. I looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't joking. He actually thought he was the victim here. I'm taking this out of my rent, I said, my voice cracking. He smiled, but his eyes stayed cold. Try it. See what happens to your credit score. I should have trusted my gut right then and moved out. But I didn't. I stayed. And that's when things got truly dangerous. By the second year, the apartment wasn't just depressing, it was dangerous. The back porch was made of wood that felt like wet cardboard under my feet. Every time I stepped out to take the trash, I heard a groan from the beams. Henderson, the back porch is rotting, I told him one morning while he was painting a different unit with the cheapest, most chemical-smelling white paint I'd ever encountered. I almost went through a board yesterday. He didn't even stop his brush. Then stop walking on it so hard. You're a big guy, Mark. Maybe go on a diet. It's a safety issue. If a delivery driver falls, you're liable. He finally looked at me, his eyes squinting behind thick glasses. I'll get to it when I get to it. You want a 5-star resort? Go pay 5-star prices. Otherwise, watch your step. It stayed like that for 2 years. A death trap held together by habit and hope. The wood smelled like damp earth and decay every time it rained. I stopped using the back door entirely. I was paying for a porch I couldn't even stand on. Then came the winter from hell. The gas heater in the living room started making this high-pitched whistle, and the flame inside wasn't blue anymore. It was a flickering, sickly orange. I woke up one night with a headache so bad, it felt like a railroad spike was driven through my temples. My cat, Mittens, was acting dizzy, stumbling over her own paws. I called the gas company. The technician arrived, took one look at the unit, and turned the gas off immediately. This thing isn't up to code, buddy, he said, shaking his head. The vent is blocked. You're lucky you didn't wake up dead from carbon monoxide. I called Henderson, my voice shaking from the cold and the fear. The gas company shut the heater off. It's a death trap. They're just trying to upsell you on a new unit, Henderson said over the phone. I could hear him eating something crunchy. Just turn it back on with a wrench. It's fine. I am not turning it back on. You need to replace it. Fine, fine. I'll send my cousin over to look at it. His cousin never showed up. I spent 3 weeks using a space heater that tripled my electric bill. Henderson didn't offer a dime in credit. The straw that finally broke the camel's back wasn't the heat or the porch. It was a parking spot. I'd parked in the same gravel patch behind the building for 3 years. It was included in my original handshake agreement. Then, a typed letter appeared on my windshield. Starting next month, parking is $150 per month. Pay or park on the street. The street was a mile away and famous for car break-ins. I went to his office, a cluttered room in the basement that smelled like old paper and mothballs. The parking was included, Henderson. We agreed on this. Show me the lease, he said, leaning back in his creaky chair. Go on. Find the word parking in there. He knew I couldn't. He'd intentionally left it out. It's a verbal agreement. Verbal agreements aren't worth the paper they aren't printed on, he chuckled. $150, or start walking. I'd had enough. I went to a lawyer friend of mine. 2 days later, a formal letter was delivered to Henderson's door. It mentioned tenant rights and established usage. Henderson didn't take the lawyer's letter well. He came to my door at 7 a.m. the next morning, pounding so hard the peeling paint flaked off the frame. "You think you're smart?" he screamed when I opened the door. His face was a deep, alarming shade of purple. "You bring a lawyer into my house? Over a parking spot? I'm protecting my rights. You have the right to be quiet." He shoved a piece of paper into my chest. "Since you want to play by the book, let's play. I'm charging you for unauthorized storage of that space heater you've been using, and I'm auditing your water usage." "You can't do that." "I can do whatever I want. This is my building. You're just a guest who's overstayed his welcome." He stomped away, but I could hear him muttering to himself all the way down the stairs. He wasn't just greedy anymore. He was spiteful. He wanted me broken. A week later, it was the 1st of the month. I'd finally paid that $400 plumbing bill from the illegal pipes earlier that year. To balance it out, I deducted that amount from my rent check, just like my lawyer suggested. I left a note with the check, deducting repair costs for essential plumbing as per state law. Henderson didn't wait 24 hours. He posted a late rent notice on my door for everyone in the building to see. "You're $400 short, Mark," he said when he saw me at my car. "Read the note, Henderson. I paid for the repairs you refused to fix." "I don't care about your repairs. The rent is the rent. You're late. That's a $50 fee every day you're short. I've never been late in 3 years. You're late now, and trust me, I'm keeping track." For the first time, I felt a flicker of real panic. He was building a file on me. He was trying to make me look like a problem tenant, so he could justify what was coming next. Part 11. The ultimate insult. The final blow came in a thick manila envelope. I thought it was another legal threat. Instead, it was a lease renewal notice. I opened it and felt the air leave my lungs. My current rent was $200. The new proposed rent was $700, a $500 increase, for an apartment with falling paint, a rotting porch, and illegal plumbing. I looked up at the ceiling, at the cracks that looked like a spider web. Henderson didn't want me to stay. He wanted me to leave so he could find someone else to exploit, someone who didn't have a lawyer or a backbone. I felt a strange calmness wash over me, the kind of calm you feel before a storm. I realized then that I wasn't going to fight the rent hike. I wasn't going to argue anymore. I was going to burn his entire business to the ground. Legally, of course. I didn't pack a single box that first night. Instead, I sat on my floor with a notebook and a flashlight. I walked through every inch of that apartment, recording the sins Henderson had committed over the last 3 years. The cracks in the foundation, the mold behind the bathroom tiles, the way the windows rattled in their frames like they were terrified of the wind. "You okay, Mittens?" I whispered to my cat. She just looked at me with those big green eyes, sensing the tension. I knew Henderson's schedule. He was a creature of habit. Every morning at 10 a.m., he went to a local diner to complain about lazy tenants to anyone who would listen. That gave me a 2-hour window. I wasn't just moving out. I was preparing a dossier. Most people get mad and leave. I decided to get even and stay long enough to watch the first match catch fire. The next morning, I called City Hall. I asked for the building inspection department. "I'd like to report multiple code violations at 42 Maple Street," I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Is this a tenant-landlord dispute?" the woman on the other end asked. She sounded like she'd heard this 1,000 times. "It's a safety dispute," I corrected her. "The back porch is a death trap. The plumbing is illegal, and the gas heater is currently red-tagged by the utility company. but the landlord is telling tenants to just use a wrench to fix it. The line went quiet for a second. The sound of typing filled the silence. An inspector will be there tomorrow at 9 a.m. Will you be home to grant access? I'll be waiting on the front steps, I said. At exactly 9 a.m., a silver sedan pulled up. A man stepped out wearing a high-vis vest and carrying a clipboard that looked like it had seen some battles. This was Inspector Vance. He didn't smile. He didn't shake my hand. He just looked up at the building and scowled. "You're the one who called?" Vance asked. His voice was like sandpaper. "I am. Thank you for coming." "Let's start with the porch," he said. "The call mentioned it was recently replaced?" "He replaced it 3 months ago," I explained. "But he did it himself, with his cousin. No permits, no licensed contractors." Vance walked to the back of the building. He didn't even step on the porch. He just looked at the way the beams met the house. He took out a measuring tape, his face turning a deeper shade of red with every second. "He didn't use joist hangers," Vance muttered, more to himself than me. He poked a support beam with the tip of a heavy boot. "And this wood, this isn't even pressure treated. This will rot in 2 seasons." He started writing. Fast. The sound of his pen scratching against the paper was the most beautiful music I'd ever heard. "He told me it was up to code," I said. Vance looked at me over his glasses. "Kid, if this is his idea of code, he's lucky the whole thing hasn't collapsed into the dirt. This is a structural failure waiting to happen." He took photos. Flash. 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 Each one was a nail in the coffin of Henderson's bank account. We went inside. I showed him the plumbing under the sink. Vance leaned in, the smell of raw sewage and old grease wafting up as he moved a pipe. "God almighty," he whispered. "This isn't even a P-trap. It's just a mess of PVC and duct tape." "Is that duct tape?" "He called it a quick fix," I said. Vance stood up and wiped his hands on a rag. "Duct tape is for boxes, not for gray water. This is a health violation. If this leaks into the unit below, you've got a mold colony that could kill a horse." Then we went to the gas heater. He didn't even need to touch it. He saw the unsafe tag from the gas company and the way the vent was held together with a coat hanger. "That's it," Vance said. He closed his clipboard with a loud thud. "What happens now?" I asked. Vance looked around the kitchen, his eyes landing on the peeling ceiling paint. "Now? Now I go back to the office and file the report. Each one of these is a major violation. The porch, the plumbing, the heater, those are life safety issues." What does that mean for him? It means he gets a notice to correct within 24 hours. And because these are safety risks, there's a fine for every day they aren't fixed. "How much?" Vance adjusted his vest. "Standard is $500 per violation per day. I count at least 4 major ones here. You do the math? $2,000 a day. My rent was $1,200 a month. Henderson was about to pay more in fines in a single weekend than I had paid him in a year. As Vance was leaving, I saw Henderson's truck pull into the diner across the street. He didn't see the inspector's car. He was probably thinking about how he was going to spend that extra $500 a month he was trying to squeeze out of me. I felt a rush of adrenaline. For 3 years, he'd treated me like a paycheck with legs. He thought I was weak because I was quiet. He thought my niceness was a lack of teeth. He was about to find out that I wasn't just nice. I was patient. "Have a good lunch, Henderson," I whispered from behind my curtain. "It's the last peaceful meal you're going to have for a long time." "Hold on." We're about to get to the final week where things turn violent. But I need to know, am I the villain here? My friends are split. Some say I should have just moved out. Others say Henderson got exactly what he deserved. Drop a comment below and let me know what you would have done. And if you're enjoying this revenge, smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Okay, let's get back to the chaos. 4 days before I was set to leave, the letters started arriving. I saw Henderson standing by the mailboxes, his hands shaking as he ripped open the official envelope from the city. I was walking to my car when I heard him roar, "Mark!" I didn't stop. I didn't even turn around. "I know you did this," he screamed, his voice cracking with rage. He ran toward me, waving the papers in the air. "You called the city. You brought them into my building." "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, my voice as cool as ice. Maybe if the porch wasn't rotting, they wouldn't have anything to write about. "You're dead," he spat. "You hear me? You're out of here. Today, not Friday, today." I knew Henderson's type. When men like him lose money, they lose their minds. I didn't go back to the apartment. I drove straight to the local police station. I sat in the lobby for 20 minutes, my leg bouncing nervously. Finally, Officer Miller called me back. "Officer, I'm moving out of my apartment at 42 Maple. My landlord just received some heavy fines from the building inspector, and he's currently threatening to throw me out today." Miller took notes. "Your lease is active until Friday?" "Yes, and he's already threatened me physically. I just want this on the record in case he tries something." "Good move," Miller said. "If he shows up and harasses you, call us immediately. Don't engage. We'll handle the rest." I felt a little better, but the pit in my stomach wouldn't go away. I knew Henderson wasn't going to wait for the police. That evening, the power went out. Just in my unit. I checked the breaker. Everything looked fine. Then I looked out the window and saw Henderson standing by the external power box with a smirk on his face. Then came the banging. He wasn't even using the door. He was kicking the wall outside my bedroom. Thud, thud, thud. "Tick-tock, Mark!" he yelled through the wall. "Police are coming if you aren't gone by morning. I told them you're trespassing." I didn't answer. I sat in the dark with my cat, my phone charged and ready. He was trying to bait me into a fight. He wanted me to swing first so he could play the victim. "Not today, Henderson," I whispered. "I've got the law on my side. You've just got a hammer." Friday morning arrived, the day I was supposed to be officially gone by midnight. I'd hired a small van and moved most of my big stuff on Thursday while Henderson was at his diner. All that was left were a few boxes and mittens. At 10:30 a.m., I loaded the last of my kitchen gear and drove it to my new storage unit. It was a 20-minute drive. I figured I had plenty of time. Henderson was usually gone until noon, but as I pulled out of the driveway, I saw his truck parked 2 blocks away. He was watching me, waiting for me to leave the fortress. I should have turned back. I should have stayed in the apartment. But I thought, what's he going to do? The police already warned him. That was my second mistake. I underestimated just how crazy a greedy man can get when he's cornered. I drove away, and that's when Henderson moved in. The drive back from the storage unit felt longer than usual. My hands were tight on the steering wheel, and I kept checking my rearview mirror. Something felt off. The air felt heavy, like the sky was about to drop a storm on the city. I turned onto Maple Street and saw Henderson's truck. It wasn't just parked. It was pulled onto the sidewalk right in front of the main entrance. The driver's side door was wide open. I parked my car and ran toward the building. My heart was thumping against my ribs so hard it hurt. "Mittens," I whispered. "Please be okay." I stepped into the hallway and stopped dead. The air smelled like freshly cut wood and old dust. And then I heard it. A final heavy clack of metal hitting metal. I reached my door, Unit 2B, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. 4-inch framing nails were driven straight through the door and into the frame. 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom, and 1 right through the center near the lock. The wood around the nails was splintered and white. My front door was sealed shut. I grabbed the handle and yanked. It didn't budge. It felt like I was pulling on a brick wall. "Henderson!" I screamed. I hammered my fists against the wood. "Open this door! My cat is in there! Open it right now!" Silence. Then a slow, creaky footstep from the end of the hallway. Henderson stepped out from the shadows of the stairwell. He was still holding a heavy framing hammer. He looked down at it, then up at me, a disgusting, self-satisfied smirk on his face. "I told you the deadline was 10 o'clock, Mark," he said. He sounded calm, dangerously calm. "It's 11:15. You abandoned the unit. Anything inside is now property of the landlord." "You nailed the door shut," I yelled. I reached for my phone, my fingers shaking. "That's illegal." "You can't seal a tenant out." "I'm not sealing you out. I'm securing my property against a trespasser." He took a step toward me, swinging the hammer gently by his side. "You want your stuff? Pay me the $5,000 in damages you caused by bringing that inspector here." "You're insane," I whispered. "I'm the boss," he countered. "And you're a nobody. Now get out of my building before I use this hammer for something else." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I backed away and dialed 911. "I need police at 42 Maple Street," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "My landlord has nailed my door shut while my pet is inside. He is currently armed with a hammer and threatening me." Henderson laughed, a dry, wheezing sound. "Go ahead, call them. I'll tell them you broke in. I'll tell them I caught you stealing from the other units." He actually believed his own lies. He'd spent so many years bullying people that he thought the truth was whatever he said it was. I walked out to the front porch to wait. I wasn't going to let him corner me in that hallway. 5 minutes later, a cruiser pulled up. It was Officer Miller, the same cop I'd talked to earlier. He stepped out of the car, looking tired and annoyed. "I told you I'd be seeing you again," Miller said, looking at me. "Officer, he nailed the door shut. My cat is trapped inside. He's in the hallway with a hammer." Miller didn't waste time. He drew his baton and walked into the building. I followed a few steps behind. Henderson was still standing by my door, trying to look busy by picking at the paint. He saw Miller and his face changed instantly. The smirk vanished. He suddenly looked like a confused old man. "Officer, thank God you're here," Henderson said, his voice going up an octave. "This tenant is refusing to leave. He's trespassing. I had to secure the unit." Miller looked at the door. He ran his hand over the splintered wood where the nails were driven in. Then he looked at Henderson. "You used nails, Mr. Henderson?" Miller asked. "To protect my property, yes. He was going to steal the appliances." "Those are my appliances," I shouted. "I have the receipts." "Quiet," Miller said to me. Then he turned back to Henderson. "Sir, you were told this morning that the lease is active until midnight. It is currently noon. You have physically barred a legal tenant from his residence." I thought he left." "I saw the van." "It doesn't matter what you thought," Miller snapped. You have 60 seconds to get a crowbar and open this door, or I'm calling a locksmith and charging you for the damage. Henderson didn't move. He stood his ground, clutching the hammer. I'm not opening it. He owes me money for the fines. He called the city. He's trying to ruin me. Sir, put the hammer down, Miller said. His voice was low and dangerous now. No, this is my house. I built this. You can't tell me what to do in my own building. Henderson was shouting now, spit flying from his lips. He was losing it. The reality of the fines and the loss of control was snapping his brain. Miller reached for his radio. I need a supervisor at 42 Maple. I have a non-compliant subject with a weapon. The word supervisor seemed to trigger something in Henderson. He looked at the door, then at Miller, then at the exit. Before Miller could react, Henderson turned and bolted down the back stairs. For a man his age and size, he moved fast, fueled by pure, unadulterated cowardice. Hey, stop! Miller yelled, but he didn't chase him. He had to stay with the scene. We heard a truck engine roar to life outside. Tires screeched. Henderson was gone. Is he going to get away? I asked, my heart sinking. In a town this size? No, Miller said. He looked at the door. Can you get this open? I found a pry bar in my toolkit in the car. It took 10 minutes of sweating and grunting, but I finally pulled those nails out. The wood was ruined, but the door finally swung open. I ran inside. Mittens! I found her under the bed, her fur standing on end, shaking like a leaf. I pulled her out and held her close. She was okay. Terrified, but okay. I looked around the apartment and my blood went cold. Henderson hadn't just nailed the door. He'd been inside while I was at the storage unit. My remaining boxes were ripped open. My clothes were scattered across the floor. And on the kitchen table, he'd left a note scrawled in red marker. You will pay. Officer, I called out. You need to see this. Officer Miller walked through the rooms, taking photos of the mess. He entered the unit without notice while the lease was active and committed vandalism, Miller said. Plus the physical threat with the hammer. What does that mean for him? Miller looked at me, and for the first time, he gave me a small, grim smile. It means he just turned a civil landlord dispute into a felony. A felony? Breaking and entering with intent to harass, plus criminal mischief, and since he fled the scene of a police investigation, we're adding that too. I'm calling in the warrant now. I sat down on one of my only remaining chairs. I felt a weird mix of exhaustion and total, soaring victory. I moved the rest of my stuff out that afternoon. I didn't want to spend another second in that building. As I was pulling away for the last time, I saw 3 police cruisers with their lights flashing, parked in front of the diner across the street. Henderson was being led out in handcuffs. He wasn't yelling anymore. He looked small. His suit jacket was wrinkled, and his expensive-looking gold watch was being bagged as evidence. He saw my car and stopped. I rolled down the window. I didn't say anything. I just watched. He looked me in the eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, I saw it. Fear. Not the I'm mad at you fear, but the my life is over fear. A month later, I got a call from Inspector Vance. Just thought you'd like an update, kid, Vance said. We did a follow-up on 42 Maple. Henderson didn't fix a single thing. He couldn't. His bank accounts were frozen because of the criminal case. What happens to the building? It's been condemned. The fines reached $60,000. The city is putting a lien on the property. He's going to lose the whole building just to pay the taxes and the penalties. I did the math in my head. He tried to squeeze $500 extra a month out of me, and in return, he lost a multi-million-dollar property and his freedom. Talk about a bad investment. The court date came 6 months later. I didn't even have to testify for long. The police report, the photos of the nailed door, and the note he left were enough. Henderson pleaded guilty to a felony charge of breaking and entering. He got 3 years of probation, a massive fine, and a permanent criminal record. He can never hold a professional license again. His days of being a landlord are over. He sat at the defense table, head bowed, while the judge ripped into him for his predatory and dangerous behavior. I walked out of that courtroom feeling lighter than I ever had. It's been a year since I moved out of that dump. My new apartment has a porch that can actually hold a human being. The plumbing works. The heater is quiet and safe. Sometimes I drive past 42 Maple. It's boarded up now. There's a for sale sign from the city in the front yard. The peeling paint is almost gone, showing the gray wood underneath. I learned a lot from Henderson. I learned that some people think they can treat the world like their personal punching bag just because they own a few bricks. But I also learned that if you're patient and you follow the rules, the system eventually catches up to the bullies. I lost a dryer and a few $100 in plumbing fees. He lost everything. So that's the story of the landlord who tried to nail me into a corner and ended up in a cell. No regrets. If you enjoyed this story of a slumlord getting exactly what he deserved, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I post real-life revenge stories like this every single week, and trust me, they only get wilder. Let me know in the comments, did I take it too far, or should I have done more? I read every single comment, so let's talk down there. Check out the playlist on your screen for more crazy drama, and I'll see you in the next one.